When 73-year-old Walter Thompson walked into Phoenix Precision Shooting Range that Tuesday morning, the young Navy SEALs couldn't help but chuckle. His shaky hands, slow gait, and weathered 50-year-old Colt 45 looked almost comical compared to their state-of-the-art equipment and athletic builds. 10 minutes later, those elite warriors would receive the humbling lesson of their lives. Because real experience comes with age, and some skills are forged in fires that modern training can't replicate. Welcome to Veteran Legends. Before we dive into this incredible story of experience trumping youth, tell us which city you're watching from in the comments. And if you believe that wisdom and skill don't have expiration dates, hit that subscribe button. Walter's story will show you why underestimating someone based on age might be the biggest mistake you ever make. But first, you need to understand how a seemingly frail old man became the most respected shooter at one of America's most competitive ranges. Phoenix Precision was the kind of shooting range that attracted serious marksmen. Located 40 miles outside the city, it featured state-of-the-art facilities, challenging courses of fire, and a clientele that included law enforcement, military personnel, and competitive shooters who measured their skills in fractions of inches at 100-yard distances. The range's reputation for excellence meant that only those serious about precision shooting made the drive through the desert heat. Walter Thompson had been making that drive every Tuesday and Friday for 15 years, ever since his retirement from a quiet career as a civil engineer. He drove a faded blue pickup truck that looked as weathered as he did, parked in the same spot near the back of the lot, and carried his equipment in a canvas bag that had seen better decades. Most regulars knew him as the polite old gentleman who minded his own business and cleaned up his brass religiously. What they didn't know was that Walter's 50-year-old Colt 45 had served him through 2 tours in Korea, where he'd earned 3 Bronze Stars and a reputation among his unit as the best instinctive shooter in the 8th Army. His hands might shake slightly when he poured his morning coffee, but they steadied completely when wrapped around familiar grips. His eyes might need reading glasses for newspapers, but they could still calculate windage and elevation with computer-like precision. The Navy SEALs arrived that morning as part of their monthly precision shooting training rotation. Team leader Chief Petty Officer Marcus Rodriguez led 5 of the Navy's finest marksmen, each carrying equipment worth more than most people's cars. Their rifles featured advanced optics, precision-machined barrels, and ergonomic accessories that represented decades of tactical evolution. They moved with the confident swagger of men who knew they were among America's elite warriors. Rodriguez, at 32, had completed 3 combat deployments and held multiple marksmanship records within SEAL Team 7. His team included some of the youngest and most technologically trained shooters in military history. They approached shooting with scientific methodology, environmental data logging, and ballistic calculations that would impress university mathematics professors. "Range looks pretty quiet today," observed Petty Officer Jake Morrison, noting the sparse Tuesday morning crowd. His eyes swept past Walter, who was methodically arranging his simple shooting kit on a nearby bench, dismissing the elderly man as just another retiree playing with firearms. Walter overheard their conversation as they discussed their training objectives for the day. They planned to practice precision shots at various distances, working on consistency and speed in challenging conditions. Their equipment setup took nearly 20 minutes, with each SEAL carefully calibrating optics and recording environmental data on waterproof tablets. "Excuse me, gentlemen," Walter said quietly, approaching their firing line during a break in their preparation. His voice carried the respectful tone of someone who understood military courtesy. "Mind if I use the lane next to you?" "I'll stay out of your way." Rodriguez glanced up from his rifle setup, noting Walter's civilian clothes and aged appearance. "Sure, Pops. Just be careful with that antique. We're doing some serious shooting here today." The comment drew smiles from the other SEALs, who were accustomed to working with the most advanced firearms technology available. Walter nodded politely and took his position in lane 15, directly adjacent to the SEAL team. He began his own preparation ritual, which looked almost primitive compared to their high-tech approach. No environmental monitoring equipment, no ballistic calculators, no precision optics, just an old man checking the action of an older pistol and loading 7 rounds into a magazine that had been manufactured when most of the SEALs weren't even. The rangemaster announced the first course of fire, precision shots at 25, 50, and 100 yards, with scoring based on group size and accuracy. The SEALs approached the challenge with methodical precision, using their advanced optics to analyze targets and environmental conditions before each shot. Their equipment gave them significant advantages in target acquisition and range estimation. Walter's approach was different. He stepped up to the firing line, extended his arms into a classic Weaver stance that had been outdated for decades, and began shooting with a rhythm that seemed almost meditative. No rangefinder readings, no wind calculations, no consultation of ballistic charts. Just an old man and his old gun, working together with the kind of muscle memory that only came from thousands of hours of practice over decades. The first target results surprised everyone except Walter. His 7 shots at 25 yards had created a group small enough to be covered by a quarter, with 6 shots touching the X-ring and 1 just outside. The SEALs had achieved excellent precision with their modern equipment, but none had matched the tight consistency of Walter's ancient Colt. "Lucky shooting, old-timer," Morrison commented, though his tone carried less dismissiveness than before. The SEALs were professionals who recognized skill when they saw it, regardless of its source. The 50-yard targets told a more dramatic story. Walter's group remained impossibly tight, while the SEALs struggled slightly with the increased distance and challenging lighting conditions. Their advanced optics provided clear target images, but they were still learning to trust their equipment under varying conditions. Walter's shots seemed to ignore environmental factors entirely, landing in nearly identical positions despite using iron sights that required significant skill to employ effectively. Rodriguez found himself watching Walter's technique with growing interest. The old man's shooting stance was textbook perfect, but from an era when marksmanship was taught as a combination of physical positioning and mental discipline rather than equipment optimization. His breathing pattern was so consistent that his shoulders rose and fell like a metronome, and his trigger control was so smooth that the muzzle barely moved during firing. "Sir," Rodriguez said during the next ceasefire period, his tone carrying new respect, "that's some impressive shooting. Mind if I ask where you learned technique like that?" Walter was reloading his magazine with the careful precision of someone who had performed the action thousands of times. "Korea, mostly," he replied without elaboration. "Had some good instructors who emphasized fundamentals over gadgets." The comment hung in the air as the SEALs processed its implications. Korea meant the early 1950s, which would make Walter a veteran of one of America's most challenging conflicts. Combat experience from that era had been earned under conditions that made modern military training look comfortable by comparison. The 100-yard challenge was where most shooters expected Walter's age and equipment limitations to finally show. Shooting a pistol accurately at 100 yards required exceptional skill under the best circumstances, and doing it with iron sights at 73 years old seemed nearly impossible. The SEALs were confident that their advanced optics and modern training would provide decisive advantages at the extended range. Walter approached the firing line with the same calm deliberation he'd shown at closer distances. He studied the target through his iron sights for several seconds, making minute adjustments to his stance and grip. Then, he began shooting with the same rhythmic cadence that had characterized his earlier performances. The results were stunning. 7 shots at 100 yards, 6 of them in the X-ring and 1 barely outside, created a group that would have been impressive with a precision rifle and scope. Achieved with a 50-year-old pistol and iron sights by a 73-year-old man, it bordered on impossible. The SEALs stood in stunned silence as they examined Walter's target. Their own shooting had been competent, even excellent by normal standards, but none had approached the consistent precision that Walter had demonstrated across all 3 distances. Morrison pulled out his phone to photograph the target, shaking his head in disbelief. "Sir," Rodriguez said, his voice carrying the respect that one warrior offered to another, "I need to ask directly. What's your background? That shooting isn't just good, it's extraordinary." Walter finished packing his equipment before responding, his movements still carrying the methodical precision that had characterized his shooting. "Eighth Army, 1950 to 1952, he said quietly. "Spent 2 years trying to stay alive, while Chinese and North Korean soldiers tried to change my mind about that. Got pretty good at hitting what I aimed at." He paused, seeming to weigh whether to continue. "After I came home, I kept practicing. Figured the skills might come in handy again someday. Turned out they were mainly useful for keeping an old man's hand steady and mind focused." Rodriguez realized they were in the presence of someone whose combat experience predated most modern military doctrine. The Korean War had been fought under conditions of extreme hardship, with equipment that required exceptional individual skill to employ effectively. Soldiers like Walter had developed marksmanship abilities through necessity, refined through survival, and maintained through decades of dedicated practice. "Chief," Morrison said quietly, "we just got schooled by a legend." The other SEALs nodded in agreement, their initial amusement replaced by genuine respect. They recognized that they had witnessed something rare, master-level skill maintained across decades, demonstrated with humility and quiet professionalism that reflected military values at their best. Walter accepted their respect with the same quiet dignity he'd shown throughout the morning. He answered their questions about Korean War experiences and shooting techniques, sharing insights earned through combat experience that none of their modern training had provided. His knowledge of marksmanship fundamentals had been tested under conditions where failure meant death, creating a level of expertise that no peacetime training could replicate. As the morning ended, Rodriguez made a request that surprised everyone, including Walter. "Sir, would you consider coming back next month when we're here again? My team could benefit from learning some of those fundamental techniques you've mastered." Walter smiled, the expression transforming his weathered features. "I'm here every Tuesday and Friday, Chief. Always happy to share what I know with fellow warriors." The SEALs left Phoenix Precision that day with a new understanding of what expertise really meant. They'd arrived confident in their modern training and advanced equipment, only to be outshot by a 73-year-old man using a 50-year-old pistol. But more than just a shooting lesson, they'd received an education in humility, respect, and the enduring value of fundamental skills mastered through dedicated practice. Walter continued his routine visits to the range, but word of his extraordinary shooting spread through the military community. Young soldiers and Marines began seeking him out, hoping to learn from someone whose skills had been forged in actual combat. He taught them that marksmanship wasn't about having the newest equipment or most advanced training, but about understanding fundamentals so completely that they became instinctive. The story of the old-timer who outshot the Navy SEALs became legend at Phoenix Precision, retold to remind shooters that experience and skill didn't have expiration dates. Walter had proven that sometimes the most powerful weapon wasn't the one with the most advanced technology, but the one guided by the most experienced hand. Where are you watching from today? Drop your city in the comments and tell us about a time when experience proved more valuable than youth. Subscribe to Veteran Legends for more stories that prove age is just a number when skill is measured in decades of dedication.